sending too frequently, then this is number one. And then the third one is I receive too many emails, which means overall you're getting too many emails from so many different companies. So it's more like cleaning up your opt-in list. So you are saying, oh, I'm not interested in this organization anymore. So I think people are not able to see my screen. I'm going to do one more time and let me know if you see it. Oh, okay. Sarah says she can, so probably it's not my
Yep, it's working
laptop.
now.
Okay.
I think it just may have frozen when someone logged in or out or something. Thank you.
Perfect. So the fourth reason which we found out was the content wasn't relevant. And the fifth one is, yeah, I don't want anybody to push. So as we all know, there is a strategy, right? In Marketo, we've seen that. We use that a lot. It's 4-1-1. So if you have a track, let's say you are on the education track, like you're doing lead nurturing, well thought buying process, lead nurture track. 4-1-1 principle is you send 4 emails that are more educating your audience, which means you are helping them understand understand what they're trying to solve. You're really, really helpful. One is a soft sell, where you tend to add little content around what you are selling so that you're not selling day one, you're selling after 4 emails. And the last one is a hard sell. So each track, think of that 4-1-1 principle so that you're able to get away from this situation where you're not pushing your subscribers. The next one is I signed up for one-time offer. So this is where I've seen a lot of subscribers think. Another way is, yeah, anytime you have an opt-in strategy, make sure when they check that box, you have that opt-in line at the bottom when they check that, saying that, yeah, I would be interested in receiving subsequent emails. Otherwise, they think it's a one-time offer, I got a free trial, I should not get. So that is more clarity around the content on the landing page. And rest of them are more like they're irrelevant because they change the job, they change the function, or I can Google it myself. I can look around and get the same information. But if you notice, the main ones are on the top, and that is what we are trying to focus on today's session. So how we can help. What is the solution to all these unsubscribe reasons? Well, the solution is well thought through. It's called Email Preference Center, or you can call it Subscription Management Center. And here is my favorite one. We all receive emails from Marketo, and if you just go to their unsubscribe or email preference link at the bottom of the email, you would find this. Some interesting things about this is, number one is you cannot change this email address. You know, it is hard-coded. It was possible previously, but nowadays they have changed, because otherwise I could have unsubscribed somebody else from this page. So this is a really good key thing which you should consider. Then what they are also trying to show here is your subscription is premium content. So this is my current subscription with them. I can choose whatever I like. So this is more like giving me choices or options to choose. And then they have a language. And language is becoming a big thing because we all are global, and it's easy for us to have a multilingual forms and landing pages with the technology we have. So these are some of the interesting facts. And the next one you see is save settings, which means, yeah, I'm in. Next one is unsubscribe for 90 days. You know, it's like, hey, go slow on me. And unsubscribe all. Now, based on CAN spam law, you cannot escape unsubscribe all. We all need to have it if you are planning to do email preference center. And if you don't have the center, yeah, we all have very simple basic one, which is unsubscribe from all. So now let's take a look at what are the key elements which I walked you through in that sample. One is we have to give control to the subscribers. they can choose what they want to pick. Now, based on their choices, you can send them relevant messages. So if I am not interested in, let's say, blogs, I should not receive emails when a new blog is published. The other one is personalized. You saw on the landing page, it was my name, Madhu at ShowMeLeads. The other one is when you send email, it should be personalized. And then use progressive profiling so that you have more content and more personalized email you can send. So progressive profiling, you gradually get their information, and the more you know about it, easy it is for you to segment, use snippets, use dynamic content, and nurture them based on their buying cycle. And next, the last one is reduce unsubscribe rate by following the best practices. So best practices is more around using progressive profiling, nurture, and all, which we would cover in this session. So let's talk a little bit about what are the types of email preferences. You know, we usually think, okay, email preferences like, okay, which email would you like to use? Or what content would you like to have? But however, we can easily slice it into three different things. One is unsubscribe, opt out, which is our common one, which we all have when you buy Marketo, the very first email you are testing, and you click on the unsubscribe link, you would find that it is just one option. It will give you, okay, unsubscribe me now, and that's it. So you're gone. That's a simple unsubscribe link, which we all have to avoid canned spam. Then the next one is email subscription opt-in. So with global opt-in strategies, which are in place now, you know, for Australia, for Canada, like we need to have their consent, like an explicit opt-in consent to send any emails. And there is a good blog on ShowMeLeads. You can read how to do that. But the point here is we should have a explicit opt-in consent form and what they are signing up for. So that's what is email subscription opt-in. Then the next one you saw in the previous slide in the sample was update email preference. So what that means, first time you came in, you said, okay, I am interested in getting only the nurture emails. But then second time you come in, okay, you think, yeah, Marketo is sending me good content. I would like to subscribe to blogs. I would like to subscribe to white paper. So all those things is your update email preference. So when we think about email preference center, we have to think about all these things as well. So let's cover the very first one, which is unsubscribed opt-out. So we should consider 5 things in this. Number 1 is the visibility. Visibility means when you have that email going out, in the email, how easy it is for anyone to unsubscribe. You know, we don't want anybody to unsubscribe, but we also don't want to mislead them by not providing unsubscribe link at the right place. It's usually at the bottom, easy to go to, and always should include the form, all the email communication at once. Remember to include the option to unsubscribe from all, which I showed you in the Marketo sample. So if you have a fancy one, again, all is the required for canned spam. Clarity. So the clarity around how you configure your subscription management center, what they have already subscribed to till date. You saw in, again, referring back to the sample of Marketo, you saw that I had subscribed to premium content. So it is like, yeah, validating what you are subscribed to and give them an option to choose next. Confirm. Create a landing page and send confirmation email stating confirmation message for their preference. You know, once they update their preference, you can have a landing page where you're saying, okay, we have updated your preference. The other things to do would be remove any extra distractions such as navigation, images, or competing text, and give them the authority to unsubscribe without even compelling them to say, hey, we hate you going, but before you unsubscribe, can you fill out this so that we know? Now, I'm not saying you should not ask. I have another slide to talk about that. But what I'm saying is don't compel them to do that. It should be optional. So email subscription opt-in. This is more on maybe Josh, you want to add some flavor to this?
Sure. So while you can unsubscribe people and give them an unsubscribe page, you also have to get people into your list in the first place. And there are a couple different ways to do that. One is to add an opt-in request at each web form that you have. That could be on your blog. That could be to request a newsletter. That could be in an email that you send out to your existing list. That could be, an outbound email to an external list to try to get people to sign up. A lot of pro bloggers will invite people from other websites using guest posts to come back to their site and opt in. Or you could even use a pop-up box to get people to opt in. And with all of this, you're trying to give them an offer they can't refuse. You want them to receive some sort of content, some sort of benefit for that opt-in. They're expecting, in exchange for an email address, something useful. That could be a series of webinar invitations. That could just be, sign up and we'll send you something special. The best offers I've found tend to be ones where you say, sign up for our content, but also as part of the sign up, we're going to give you a special gift. And that could be an ebook, an infographic, something of value that's going to help the lead do something in their job that's related to your industry or your business. So as we have here, grab attention, make a good impression, make sure there's an opt-in form that's very simple. Is it a checkbox? Is it just email and press submit? Make sure you give them a good reason for that opt-in, and that offer is, what are you going to give them for giving you their email address? Again, an ebook, series of content, invitation to something. And if you're able to do this with enough volume, social element. You can ask people on your Facebook page to opt into your email address. You can invite Twitter followers to opt into your email address. That probably won't work as well until you have a pretty strong following. So if you're, have a large social following already, do that cross-sell across emails and social channels to make sure that you're building your list up.
Perfect. So let's talk about now email preference, which was the third type of email preference center. So email preference is more around the frequency, creating the email preference center, where we saw the very first reason why people unsubscribe was 54% people unsubscribe because they were getting too many emails. So we need to think about what is the frequency and let the actually subscriber decide that. So creating such kind of a subscription center would help you to not to blast them anytime you want to, because it is based on their preference. Then pick the option. Let subscriber choose which topics, newsletter, emails, nurture, white paper, case studies. So let them choose based on what you have to offer and details of each option. White paper, okay, fine. But again, more detailed you are, it's good for you and for the subscriber so that they are not getting way too many emails from you. And the other good thing which I found is really helpful, it's to build trust, as well as, subscribers love this, is always remind them why they are getting. I'm sure you must have seen this with Marketo emails as well. So at the bottom of the email, just below where you see the email preference, you see you are sending this email because you are Marketo partner. You had requested from Marketo or Marketo partner. So, and again, you are giving an option to unsubscribe if they want to, or ask them to confirm if you want to. The last one is resubscribe. I know sometimes they opt in and then they unsubscribe. But then if they come back to your website and fill out a form and you send out a thank you email, that might be another option to ask them if they would like to subscribe. But the point is, we have to be really open about it. They should know they have subscribed, they should know they have unsubscribed, and then if they are resubscribing, we should have some kind of a process in place. So this is what I was talking about, the feedback. If somebody unsubscribed, we would let them do that. We should not stop, because that's against the law. Number one, it should be one click unsubscribe. And number two is, it's always valuable to gather the feedback about why they would like to unsubscribe, so that you can improve on that based on the reason. So include an optional. I highlighted optional because, yeah, it should not be a required field in unsubscribe page, like a text area if you want to put it there. Give people option to contact you directly. Again, when they're unsubscribing, you can say, okay, sorry, we are really sorry, but we would like to know, or contact us directly. Allow people who unsubscribe to leave their own feedback. Now, this is another way, if they're unsubscribing and there is an optional link to take them to somewhere where you can standardize the reasons why they're unsubscribing, that's also another way to capture the feedback. Rest of the slides, what I'm going to share are some of email preference center different companies have created. If you notice here, PayPal, it has subscription, and so we are on unsubscribe page. So you can choose which one, but again, notice that you can unsubscribe from all as well. Another one, you see here, subscription center, all of this, and then you should have an option from unsubscribe. Here I see in ReadyTalk. So the critical elements are, you need to segment what are your offers, or in a way I call them unsubscribe segments. So it is a well thought through process. Think about that before you start creating this. What are those segments? And then create something like this, maybe a little better design. But the reason why you see a lot of sentences here, we talked about it, it should be a little detailed, what they are going to get in this, what they are going to get in this. So this is a really good way of putting it together. And then the great one is this, remove from all of your distribution list.
Right, and if I could just add there, if you're able to show an example of what that email looks like with a little link to an image, or even in line in the page, that can be really helpful. I've done that in the past.
Yep. Okay, so the next one is, now we saw what all we need to do, right? So where do we get started in Marketo? How would you build this great email preference center? So the very basic elements, it's like any other campaign or program you would create. So I would create a program. My program would have all the assets, email, landing pages, and forms. Now, I would like to mention responsive, the reason being subscription management center, people might be opening in different gadgets, devices. So, and they have to select. So if it is not visible, then it's of no use. They would prefer unsubscribe from all versus just picking the right one. So make sure these are responsive, and landing pages also make sure it is responsive with the emails. Form 2.0, I'm sure we all are using that. And then the campaigns, which are actually sending the confirmation emails when update preference is done. This is, again, it's more of an operational email you can choose. Or I really like putting that in landing page, a follow-up landing page when somebody updates the preference. And to add to that is advanced, this is what I've seen we have done for multiple big enterprise, is adding dynamic content and JavaScripting. When you have email preference center, you would like to go and take it to the next step, and you may need a little more dynamic content, snippet, and JavaScripting. So maybe Josh, you want to talk about how to create a campaigns to get to email subscription center?
Sure. So you don't have to spend a huge amount of time on campaigns as part of this system. And again, it's going to depend greatly on the kinds of fields that you have. Do you have 2 or 3 communication options? Do you have 10 or 20? typically what you need is a trigger campaign that's listening for the form fill out or a change in the preferences. So the first campaign would say, well, did someone change their preference? Do we need to do anything after that, like send an email? I've done a couple of these where after you fill out that form, it sends you a confirmation email. These are your current preferences. And you might need to spend a little time playing with that to make sure that the tokens in the email actually provide something other than a 1 or a 0, for example. Another campaign you probably will need is if someone clicks unsubscribe all on the form, you need to have a campaign that says, okay, if unsubscribe becomes true, make sure that all of the other options are unsubscribed as well. Because sometimes your form might have, the user might have clicked several different options and then clicked unsubscribe. So you have to make sure everything is unsubscribed after that. That's really just good housekeeping. Technically, Marketo will not send an email to someone whose unsubscribe equals true. Now, if you want to get fancier, and some of this is explained in my Marketo Rockstar Guide if you go to my website, but if you want to go fancier and you have unusual situations like multiple languages, different kinds of audiences that you want to adhere to, you can use dynamic content. Build a segmentation that says, this person is in French, English, Spanish, Chinese, and that would allow them to see a different form depending on which language they're a part of. You could also do that based on audience, patients, doctors, employees, for example. It gets a little more technical than that, and we're not going to, I can talk a little bit more about it if you'd like during Q&A. The other option is, of course, JavaScripting. Every now and then you have a situation where you want to make sure unsubscribe all checks all of the boxes on the form. That requires a little bit of code. You might also have a situation where you only want to display certain fields depending on their segmentation. That can get a little tricky if you have more than a few fields and audience options. So usually what I recommend there is doing some heavier duty jQuery and JavaScript so that if it sees that someone's a patient and they're a certain type of patient, they should only see certain fields to subscribe to, right? They should not see doctor communications, for example. So there are ways to manage this. It's really just a matter of what is your business process, how do you want to market, and who is your audience.
Okay, so let's continue. So we talked about responsive, which we all, I'm sure we are using. We do it for a lot of our customers. And this is creating the email preference center. So if you notice, I picked the recent email I got probably today from Marketo. And this is the bottom line where it says this email was sent to you because you requested information from Marketo or a partner. If you wish to unsubscribe or update your email subscription, please visit our email preference center. So this is where we are telling that, hey, you had opted in and you trust us, we trust you, and that's why we are sending you email. And then the other one, I already shared this one with you, but here is the landing page. If I update my subscription here, you would see that this would come up, and feel free to test it out. It's in Marketo. I know a lot of other customers have similar ones, but for us, we have a common ground. We can check quickly if you want to implement it. Now let's talk about the best practices. So we talked about, what all it takes to create the perfect email preference center or subscription management center. So in the beginning, we talked about emails came too frequently, made people unsubscribe more than 50%. How can we resolve this? If you notice, the best practices covers that in detail. So I'm sure we are using progressive profiling form, which would gradually get the data, and it will be helpful for you so that the subscriber is not saying, hey, why I'm being asked so many questions. That is not there. So progressive profiling would help you getting that data faster. Clean and simple opt-in strategy that Josh talked about. Sending confirmation email. The next one is always state why your subscribers are getting email. This one I've seen is really successful because if you are sending too many emails, let's say you are sending too many emails, you are in the category top of the list where you send too many emails. But if you state this, the chances are somebody would not hit on unsubscribe link because yeah, they had opted in and they know that until it's way too much. The other thing I've seen works is lead nurturing tracks because this actually ties to the content or repetitiveness. So I really like to talk through lead nurturing track because that is where we tie the buying cycle with the content and do all the content mapping. Now, most of the time I've seen, content is the major bottleneck for any lead nurturing track to come up. And I follow my 3 R's, which is repurpose, redesign, and reuse the content. Let's say you have one white paper you can use in the email content, get them to that PDF or redesign it and use it for case study if there is something, and then also repurpose it in some way or the other. Do a webinar and repurpose it. So that's what I've learned in the past, that lead nurture track, if it is there and based on the buying cycle, and buying cycle you can easily get from progressive profiling form because you're capturing the information. And what that means, gradually you have a lot of information about your subscribers, and based on what they are looking for, based on the answers they have given so far, you can put them in the exact track they should belong to. So that lead nurturing would take care of your boring stuff, and progressive profiling as well would help you with not sending too many emails frequently. Offer preferred mode and suggest the frequency. So when you create a preference center, the frequency is something which I really like to ask. And this I've seen recently, a lot of my customers do that. It's like, would you like to receive an email once a month, once a week, or every day? So think about those options, and whatever they select. Of course, there's some work in Marketo you would have to do, but again, I really like, because that way you are going according to their preference, and you would be able to cover a lot of these issues. So let's look into what is a progressive profiling form, which is one of the best practice. So we all know, we've seen this. I'm sure we're using this in Form 2.0 as well. The next one is lead nurturing. We talked about that. So this is more like, think about this as an education track. So you get the email out. If they download the asset, then send another one. So based on how quickly or how engaged they are, you send the other email. If they're not opening, again, I'm trying to repurpose my content. What I normally do is I send email 1. If they open or click, they don't do that, then I send them the same email with a different subject. And that actually, so a slow reader, I would not call it a slow reader, a subscriber who is not opening your emails would be able to get through this track in 8 weeks. Who is really interested would be out in just 4 weeks. Now remember, somebody in all of these emails, I'm going to have well thought through call to actions where they can be pulled out of this email and can be put in a fast track. If they say, I want to be contacted right now, then we don't need to nurture them. Some sales rep would reach out. That is a decision which you have to make, but there should be good call to actions in these emails. The other one is using snippets. We saw the content is boring. Why it becomes boring or it's repetitive. So boring is more like, yeah, we are more likely sending the same content or irrelevant content. What that means is there was no well thought through process for the content. So think about how you can make it a little more entertaining, interesting, and helpful, and use these Marketo advanced features which are there. The next one is a frequency preference. This would absolutely help you take care of your unsubscribe rate to an extent. So think about, how you would like to have your notification preference or email preferences and give that option to your users or subscribers. So with that, I think, yeah, I would open up for any questions that anybody has.
Okay.
No?
So I think I don't know if we have time, but would it be helpful to go into Marketo and kind of take a look at how one of these things might actually work?
Okay, you want to do that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, or if you have a good example. Crystal says
I
that would
do
be great.
have.
Okay.
Any other question while... How many of you have email preference center? Let me ask you so that we can see in the chat. Okay, Jessica says not right now. Crystal says same as Jessica. Okay. But are you tracking your unsubscribe rate? It is concerning today? Anything you're doing? We are about average. We track it using SmartList RC email performance report. Jessica said that. And Crystal is saying we are about average. We do track it on monthly and quarterly basis. Okay, and basically, I would like to share, when I work with a lot of my customers after nurture or when they have a big email blast, we usually look for unsubscribe rates. And the question is, why? Why is it so much? And usually it is not the right target audience when it is way too much. So that is another thing to consider. I know email preference center is really sophisticated, uh, but on the other side, even if you don't have the right audience, it would not be helpful. So Josh, you are going to share something in Marketo?
Yep, I'm just trying to bring up the right thing here. Wherever.
Jessica is saying 0.05 to 1%. Yeah, that's good actually, Jessica. I like it.
Yeah, that's a much better rate to be at.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm like, I think with two also I'm okay, but when it comes three, then we need to start thinking about it. And
uh,
I did 6 month nurture track, and I saw this myself, the unsubscribe rate within, I think if we are doing a weekly touch with the audience, the unsubscribe rate after 2 months should not be there. It should be really negligible. So that tells us we have the right audience in the database.
excuse me. Yes, absolutely. Um, all right. So how do you actually set one of these things up? And this is going to be very quick and dirty since I didn't have a super good example. As you can see, I've got some campaigns that could be used for different options. But generally, you want to start with a program. And it's really just to capture all of the components in one place. As you can see here, I've created a special channel called Subscription Management. Um, I like that idea because it lets you do a couple of things. One is the subscription management channel is not reportable, so it's considered an operational. Right? We don't really want to attribute revenue to this program since it's not. We want to attribute revenue to actual like your blog, specific content offers, things like that. Since this is really just a management function, we're not going to do that. So we're not, you can, but we're not going to attach it to a Salesforce campaign. And you can see here I've changed the statuses so that we have opt-in and unsubscribed. Um, Ideally, that would be named better than this. It would be opt-in or opted out. And the reason you want to do this is to show that the current total number of people who have opted in, who've opted out, and the total number of people who ever subscribed. That way you can track that in a nice spreadsheet and understand what's going on. Now, we don't have all the forms, but I can create a real quick form. Right, so you want to create a form, and some of this may depend greatly on the fields in the database. So you'll forgive if I didn't have the right field. And what you'll want to do, though, is as Madhu suggested earlier, is which communications do you want? Is it a newsletter, blog, promotional, event invitations, webinar invitations? Those are examples I use, but you could have a lot of other ones. And what you're going to have to do here is create Salesforce or Marketo fields that allow you to track or toggle on and off those people's subscriptions. So I don't know if we've got everybody in here, but we've got unsubscribed. Let's see if we have other fields here. Okay, so we have blog content. No, that's not a checkbox, but we'll pretend that it is. Now, to comply with CAN spam, we don't want to ask for first name or last name. So we're going to take that off. And we only want email address and the fields that are related to the communications. So this is already a checkbox, and that's fine. So I'll change the name to unsubscribe from all. I can change the label width. And we don't want to make this required because we don't have to, they don't have to fill out the field if they don't want to. We also don't necessarily want to pre-fill this. You can, and it would, you'll have to make that displayed on the page as, these are your current settings, which is fine. But just be careful with that option. Make sure that's what you want. I'm going to pretend that blog content is actually a checkbox somewhere if I can. Oops, checkbox. Ideally, you would actually have this field as a checkbox in the beginning, but we'll pretend that it is. Okay. So that's technically all you need, and I'm just going to put that at the bottom so we discourage people from filling that out. And then we're going to go to next. Again, you can choose one of the basic elements, or you can choose a CSS theme. Now, if you want to embed this form in your main website, or you want to build it on your main website and use the API to connect to Marketo, that's fine. Just make sure you go through the whole process of designing the form and the page, and exactly what will happen when the form is filled out in Marketo. And I'll show you a couple of things about that in a moment. I'm just going to say stay on page, and we can have a confirmation page later. So again, this is very basic form. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have two pages. Main. So we're just going to call this subscription management. This page should be visible to the internet, just in case people look for it for some reason. Probably very few people will. So make sure you give it a very clear URL. Wow, that is big. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to put it in the chat box. So we're going to pull the form in. We'll put a landing page, a follow-up page later. And this is, again, really all you need. If you want to have some text up here about what this page is about or what the person's seeing, that's perfectly fine. Usually I put something in here about, please manage your preferences. Your current settings are displayed. If that's true, of course, right? Always remember to come up here to the top landing page actions and change the metas. Right? You don't need keywords, but you could put something in here about manage your email preferences or unsubscribe. Something that's clear, and you do want to leave this as index no follow. So we're going to save that. And if you want, oops, you can create a follow-up page as well. I'm not going to put a lot into this, but confirmation page. Right. So you would test this and make sure that the lead was getting the right values changed. But you also need to do a couple of things here. So as Matt has suggested, we could have a confirmation email of some type. So in that case, all we would do is pull in a fills out form. We want to make sure that it's the right form and on the right page. I haven't approved the page, so it's not going to show up there, but you get the idea. And then you would send an email based on that. And the email could have some tokens based on exactly what their current preference is. And I can show you that real quick. You'd have to create an email. Again, it could get a little fancier, and you'd have to decide if you really want to send them a confirmation email if they unsubscribed. Some people like to do that. Some people get that email and find it really annoying. I find it annoying, but it's up to your policies. So you could come in here and say, what you do is you'd find the token. I think we're using this one. Now, blog content's not really the best one here, but you get the idea. Now, the thing is that these are checkbox fields, so it's going to be 0 or 1. So if you want it to display yes or no, you would need to change those fields to like a short string field, which is what I try to do, where it actually says yes or no in Salesforce. You could also try to run a script to replace 1 or 0 with a yes or a no, which is a little beyond our short period of time here. But it can be done. So if we were to preview this, it probably won't show us anything, right? But if I were to send a sample to myself using a lead that has a value, it would show the value. So that's one component. The other thing you want to do is make sure you have an unsubscribe. So unsubscribes all. And the part of this is to make sure that you capture both the form fill out and when the unsubscribe happens. So you actually just want to, whoops, change data value. And you're really just looking for unsubscribe. So if the new value is true, we don't, right? This is basically all you need, because if the form gets filled out and unsubscribe is true, this will trigger. And if someone else manually unsubscribe someone for some reason, their value will also become true. So then what we do is we make sure their status becomes unsubscribed in the program. And then we change data values. And you'd have to do this for several of the fields that you have, and each field would have to be set to false, probably. Well, this one doesn't, right? We would set this to false, for example, but generally you want to make all of your fields positive statements. So if blog content equals true, they are subscribed. If blog content equals false, they are unsubscribed. That way we avoid these double negatives that could confuse a lot of people, where unsubscribed equals true actually means they're not going to get email, if that makes sense. So you'd let this run, and that would unsubscribe them from everything else. You could also create a list generator, and I don't know if this one has everything in it, but let's say you wanted to drop everybody who moves into a subscription into a static list. You can do that. Simply listen for the data value change, and then add or remove the person from the list. This one shows unsubscribe, for example, but if you had other fields like blog content, you would say, okay, if they're already part of the list, remove them. If they're not already part of the list, put them in. So add to list or remove from the list, and so on and so forth. I think the other option, which we didn't really talk about, which we don't really have a lot of time to go into, but is the double opt-in. You can totally do that with Marketo. You would just send them a confirmation email that says, please click on this link. It would go to a specific page that you create. I don't know why the page isn't showing up, but this email should show us, right? Hi, thank you for signing up for the newsletter. Please confirm my subscription. You can see the page name in the lower corner there. I don't know if this will actually work. Right, so subscription confirmed. So that's not actually dynamic. That's a static page. But if they don't click the link, they don't finish the process. So it actually they have to click the link. It'll say this is the subscription link. The flow would be change them to subscribed or unsubscribed. And if I don't know if this is the right one. This might be the one that sends it. No. Oh, send double opt-in email. That should be the obvious one. So this could send the email. And nothing needs to happen after this, right? Because we're really just waiting for them to click the email. But you could potentially have a wait step of a few days, and you could decide, well, if they're not subscribed by that point, just make sure they're set to unsubscribed. Okay, so that's Josh's 15-minute introduction to actually setting up subscription management. So with that, I don't see any more questions, but feel free to reach out to either of us if you have want to talk about it further. Definitely implement this sort of system as soon as you can, because it will reduce your total unsubscribe rate, and it will make people happier because you are sending them targeted communications that they actually want. Madhu, do you have anything else?
I'm good. Thank you, everyone. And we'll post it in the user group as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.